There's a level of energy that makes people wonder if you're even human. And today you'll discover a 400-year-old secret that transforms exhausted, burnt-out people into unstoppable forces of nature. Have you ever met someone who wakes up at 5 in the morning full of life, who works 12 hours without crashing, who seems to have an unlimited battery while everyone else is running on fumes by noon? While you're reaching for your third coffee just to function, they're moving through the day like it's effortless, and you know what people say about them. They must have good genes. They're just naturally energetic. They probably take some special supplements. But what if I told you that 400 years ago, in feudal Japan, samurai warriors discovered a morning ritual so powerful that it gave them the energy to train for hours, fight battles, and maintain absolute focus from sunrise to sunset? They called it Asarei, the morning flow, and once you understand how it works, you'll never feel drained again. But there's a catch. This isn't about motivation or drinking green tea. This requires you to do something at 5 in the morning that will feel impossible at first, something that goes against everything your tired body wants to do. Before I show you exactly how this system works, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment on what time you usually wake up and how your energy levels are throughout the day. This really helps me understand you better and helps the channel reach more people who need this. Thank you so much for your attention. Now, back to the video. The story I'm about to tell you happened to a man named David. David was 35 years old, worked in tech, had a wife and a 4-year-old daughter. On paper, he was successful. Good salary, nice apartment, respected at work. But David had a problem that was slowly destroying him. He had no energy. Every morning his alarm went off at 6:30. He'd hit snooze 3 times. When he finally dragged himself out of bed, he felt like he'd been hit by a truck. His routine was always the same. Stumble to the kitchen, make the strongest coffee possible, check his phone while the coffee brewed, scroll through emails and news, and feel his anxiety rising before he'd even gotten dressed. By 9 in the morning, he was already tired. By 2 in the afternoon, he was crashing hard. By 7 in the evening, when his daughter wanted to play, he was too exhausted to do anything but sit on the couch staring at his phone. His wife would say, "You're always tired. Maybe you should see a doctor." He did. Blood tests came back normal. The doctor said, "You're fine. Probably just stress. Try to exercise more and sleep better." Great advice, except David was too tired to exercise, and when he did go to bed early, he'd lie awake for hours with his mind racing. The pattern continued for 2 years. Wake up exhausted, drag through the day on coffee and willpower, collapse at night, repeat. He tried everything. Different mattresses, sleep tracking apps, vitamins, even sleeping pills. Nothing worked because he was fighting the wrong battle. He thought his problem was sleep, but his real problem was how he was starting his day. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning. David overslept, missed his alarm completely, and woke up at 8:15 in a full panic. He was supposed to be at an important client meeting at 9 downtown, a 35-minute drive. He jumped out of bed, threw on clothes, grabbed his laptop, and ran to his car. No coffee, no breakfast, no phone scrolling, just pure adrenaline-fueled movement. He made it to the meeting at 8:58, sweating and breathless. And then something weird happened. The meeting lasted 3 hours. Normally, David would be mentally checked out after 45 minutes, but this time he was sharp, focused, present. He contributed ideas, asked good questions, and noticed details he usually missed. The client was impressed. His boss pulled him aside afterward and said, "Whatever you did this morning, keep doing it. That was the best I've seen you perform in months. What did I do differently?" Then it hit him. He didn't do his normal morning routine. He didn't scroll his phone, didn't drink coffee on an empty stomach, didn't sit in a mental fog for an hour. He just moved. His body woke up through movement, not through caffeine and stress. That night he couldn't stop thinking about it. Why did skipping his routine make him feel better? He started researching morning routines, circadian rhythms, and energy management. That's when he stumbled across an article about samurai morning practices. The article mentioned something called Asarei, a specific sequence of morning actions designed to activate the body's natural energy systems. David dove deeper. He found a book written by a Japanese researcher who had studied historical samurai training manuals. The researcher explained that samurai didn't drink stimulants in the morning. They didn't ease into their day. They shocked their system awake through a specific ritual that triggered every energy pathway in the body simultaneously. The ritual had 4 elements, and they had to be done in exact order within the first 30 minutes of waking. First, cold water exposure. Not a cold shower for 10 minutes, just 60 seconds of cold water on the face and neck. This activates the vagus nerve and triggers a massive release of norepinephrine, the hormone that makes you feel alert and alive. Second, dynamic movement. Not stretching, not yoga, but explosive, full-body movement for exactly 5 minutes. Jumping jacks, burpees, running in place, anything that forces your heart rate up and floods your muscles with oxygen. Third, sunlight exposure. Stepping outside, even if it's cloudy, and letting natural light hit your eyes for at least 2 minutes. This signals to your brain that it's daytime and starts the cortisol awakening response, your body's natural energy surge. Fourth, breath control. A specific breathing pattern called Misogi breathing, 4 counts in, holds for 4, 8 counts out, repeated 10 times. This balances your nervous system and sets your baseline stress level for the entire day. David read this and thought it sounded insane. Cold water at 5:30 in the morning, burpees before breakfast. But he remembered how he felt after that chaotic morning when he had no choice but to move immediately. He decided to try it for 1 week, just 7 days. Day 1 was brutal. His alarm went off at 5:30. Every cell in his body screamed to hit snooze. But he forced himself up, walked straight to the bathroom and splashed cold water on his face for 60 seconds. The shock was intense. His body wanted to run away from the cold, but he stayed with it. When he stopped, something shifted. His eyes were wide open. His heart was beating. He felt awake. Not comfortable, but definitely awake. Next, he went to his living room and did 5 minutes of jumping jacks and high knees. His body hated it for the first 2 minutes, but by minute 3 something changed. His blood was pumping, his lungs were working, his brain was getting oxygen. When he stopped, he felt alive. Then he stepped onto his balcony. It was still dark, but there was a faint hint of dawn. He stood there for 2 minutes, just letting the outdoor air and dim light touch his face. His body started recognizing that it was morning. Finally, he sat on the floor and did the breathing pattern. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 8 counts out. 10 times. By the end, his nervous system felt calm but energized. For the first time in 2 years, David didn't need coffee to feel awake. He made breakfast, got ready for work, and left the house at 7 feeling completely different. His co-workers noticed immediately. Someone asked, "Did you get a haircut or something? You look different." He didn't look different, he felt different, and it was showing. Day 2 was easier. Day 3, his body started expecting it. Day 5, he woke up 2 minutes before his alarm. By day 7, the ritual had become automatic, but the real change wasn't just the energy, it was everything else that followed. David noticed that when he started his day with this ritual, he didn't crave junk food. His body wanted real fuel because it was actually awake and functioning properly. He noticed he could focus for hours without getting distracted because his brain wasn't in a caffeine crash cycle. He noticed he had patience with his daughter in the evening because he wasn't running on empty by 7. His wife said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. You're actually present now." At his 2-week mark, David decided to go deeper. He wanted to understand why this ritual worked so well. He found research from a neuroscientist at the University of Tokyo who had studied the physiological effects of the samurai morning routine. The researcher explained that most people wake up in what's called sleep inertia, a state where your brain is technically awake, but your body systems are still in shutdown mode. This is why you feel groggy and why you reach for stimulants. The problem is that caffeine on an empty stomach in a sleep inertia state just creates jittery exhaustion. You're chemically awake but systemically asleep. The Asarei ritual works because it activates 4 different biological systems simultaneously. Cold water triggers the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, which releases norepinephrine and dopamine. This is natural, clean energy, not chemical stimulation. Dynamic movement floods your muscles with oxygen and activates your mitochondria, the actual energy producers in your cells. When you move intensely for even 5 minutes, your mitochondria wake up and start producing ATP, the molecule your body uses for energy. Sunlight exposure resets your circadian rhythm by activating melanopsin cells in your eyes. These cells send signals to your suprachiasmatic nucleus, your body's master clock, telling it that the day has started. This triggers the cortisol awakening response, a natural 50% spike in cortisol within 30 minutes of waking. Most people fight this spike with grogginess and caffeine. The ritual harnesses it. Breath control activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, which balances out the sympathetic activation from the cold water. This prevents you from being overstimulated and anxious. You end up alert but calm, energized but grounded. A researcher at Stanford who studies performance optimization explains that elite athletes and high performers almost universally have some version of this morning activation sequence. They don't rely on motivation or caffeine, they rely on biology. David was now 3 weeks into the ritual and his life had completely changed. He was waking up at 5:30 without an alarm. He was working out after the ritual because his body actually wanted to move. He was present with his family in the evenings because he wasn't collapsing from exhaustion. But then came the first real test. A work deadline required him to stay up until 2 in the morning. He got 3 hours of sleep. His alarm went off at 5:30. This was the moment he always failed before. Exhausted, sleep-deprived, every excuse available. The old pattern would be to sleep in, skip everything, and drag through the day on coffee and regret. But he remembered something he'd read about the samurai. They didn't practice their morning ritual only when they felt rested. They practiced it especially when they didn't. Because the ritual wasn't about feeling good. It was about function. David forced himself up, did the cold water, did the movement, got the sunlight, did the breathing. It was harder than usual, but when he finished, something incredible happened. He didn't feel great, but he felt functional. His body was awake, even though his sleep debt was real. He got through that day without crashing. He didn't rely on excessive caffeine or sugar. He just moved through the day steadily. That night he slept deeply, and the next morning he was back to normal. The ritual had prevented the usual downward spiral that happens after one bad night of sleep. By week 6, people at work were asking him what he was doing. One co-worker said, "You used to look half dead every morning. Now you show up looking ready to run a marathon. What changed?" David explained the ritual. Most people looked at him like he was crazy. Cold water at 5:30 in the morning, burpees before coffee, no thanks. But one person, a woman named Sarah, said, "I'll try it, I'm desperate." Sarah was in her early 40s, had 2 kids, was always exhausted, always stressed. She started the ritual the next week. David checked in with her after 7 days. She said, "I hate you for introducing me to this, but also, I've never felt this good in my entire adult life." 3 months later, Sarah had lost 15 pounds without changing her diet, just because her body was functioning properly and stopped craving junk food. She'd stopped taking her anxiety medication because her nervous system was balanced. She was sleeping better, working better, and actually enjoying her mornings for the first time in years. This is the power of Asarei. It's not about motivation or discipline, it's about activating your biology correctly. David was now 6 months into the practice. The ritual had become so automatic that he didn't think about it anymore. His body just did it. But he wanted to understand the deeper philosophy behind why the samurai created this practice in the first place. He found writings from a 17th century samurai named Yamamoto Tsunetomo, who explained that a warrior's energy is his most valuable resource, more valuable than his sword, more valuable than his armor. Because without energy, skill is useless. Tsunetomo wrote that most men waste their energy before the day even begins by starting slowly, by easing into wakefulness, by letting their mind wander to worries and distractions. A warrior cannot afford this. He must be fully awake, fully present, fully alive from the first moment. The morning ritual was designed to ensure this. It was a non-negotiable practice that every samurai performed regardless of how they felt. Rain or shine, injured or healthy, tired or rested, the ritual happened. This wasn't about feeling good, it was about operational readiness. David realized that this was the missing piece in modern life. Everyone is trying to optimize their day, but they're starting from a deficit. They're trying to build energy on top of grogginess. The samurai understood that you must create the energy first and then everything else becomes possible. By month 9, David's transformation was complete. He was unrecognizable from the exhausted, foggy person he'd been a year earlier. He was waking up at 5 naturally, doing the ritual, and then using the next 2 hours for deep work before anyone else in his house was awake. His productivity had tripled. His mood was stable. His relationship with his wife had improved because he was actually present and engaged. His daughter said, "Daddy, you're fun now." That hit him hard because he realized how much of her early childhood he'd missed by being too tired to show up. The ritual had given him his life back. But more than that, it had given him a framework for understanding energy. Energy isn't something you have or don't have based on genetics or luck. Energy is something you create through specific actions at specific times. The samurai knew this 400 years ago, and modern science is finally catching up. A researcher at Harvard Medical School who studies mitochondrial function explains that the average person operates at about 40% of their biological energy capacity because they never properly activate their energy systems. They go from sleep to sitting, from sitting to more sitting, with brief bursts of stress in between. The body never gets the signal to produce energy, so it doesn't. The Asarei ritual sends a clear, undeniable signal: wake up, move, function, produce energy now. And the body responds because it's designed to respond. This isn't magic, it's biology. David started teaching the ritual to anyone who would listen. Some people tried it and gave up after 2 days. They said it was too hard, too uncomfortable, too early. But the ones who stuck with it for at least 2 weeks all reported the same thing. Their energy levels transformed. They stopped relying on caffeine. They stopped crashing in the afternoon. They started feeling like themselves again, or maybe for the first time. 1 year after starting the ritual, David went back to his doctor for a routine checkup. The doctor looked at his chart and said, "Your resting heart rate has dropped significantly. Your blood pressure is perfect. Your energy markers are excellent. What are you doing?" David explained the morning ritual. The doctor, who was in his 50s and always looked tired, wrote it down. 2 months later, David ran into that same doctor at a coffee shop at 6 in the morning. The doctor said, "I've been doing your ritual for 6 weeks. I haven't felt this good since I was in my 20s. Thank you." This is what happens when you align your behavior with your biology instead of fighting it. The modern world teaches us to override our natural systems with stimulants, sleep deprivation, and constant stress. The samurai understood that you don't fight your body, you activate it correctly, and then it gives you everything you need. The question now is, are you ready to try this? Are you willing to wake up 30 minutes earlier and do something uncomfortable for 7 days just to see what happens? Because here's the truth. You already know your current morning routine isn't working. You already know that dragging yourself out of bed, scrolling your phone, and chugging coffee isn't giving you the energy you need. You've been doing it for years, and it hasn't worked. So what do you have to lose by trying something different? The Asarei ritual doesn't require equipment, doesn't cost money, and doesn't take much time. It just requires you to commit to 30 minutes every morning for 1 week. Cold water for 60 seconds. Sunlight for 2 minutes. Breathing for 3 minutes, that's it. If after 7 days you don't feel a difference, go back to your old routine. But I'm telling you, based on David's story, Sarah's story, based on the hundreds of people who have tried this, you will feel a difference. And once you feel it, you won't want to go back. This 400-year-old ritual has survived because it works. Not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because it actually delivers what it promises. Infinite energy isn't about never getting tired. It's about having access to your full energy capacity whenever you need it. It's about not starting every day from a deficit. It's about being awake, alive, and fully present from the first moment. The samurai needed this because their lives depended on it. Your life might not depend on it in the same way, but your quality of life absolutely does. How much longer are you going to spend your mornings in a fog? How many more years are you going to rely on caffeine just to function? How much more of your life are you going to miss because you're too tired to show up? The ritual is here. The knowledge is here. The only question is whether you're ready to do it. If you enjoyed this video and you're going to try the Asarei ritual, I want you to comment below with one word, Asarei. That's your public commitment. That's you telling yourself and everyone else that you're going to try this for 7 days. And in 1 week, come back to this video and tell me what happened. Tell me if your energy changed. Tell me if you feel different, because I already know you will. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and get ready to transform your mornings. Remember, energy that seems infinite is just biology activated correctly. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for your attention. See you in the next video.